unlocking your world of creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson. This episode is brought to you by White Cloud Coffee Roasters, where every bean tells a story of adventure. Visit whitecloudcoffee.com and use the code CREATIVITY.
Welcome back, friends, to our podcast, Your World of Creativity. And as I've talked to dozens of singer-songwriters, often a sentiment I've heard is how they have felt stuck or discouraged or rejected at some point in their careers. And I'm so happy to have a guest today who's going to talk about how to overcome some of those setbacks and how to rediscover the joy in your music, how to keep fighting for your dream. In fact, his book is called Keeping the Dream Alive. Welcome to the program, Greig Watts.
Great to be here. Nice to see you.
Greig is a powerhouse in songwriting and publishing and music development. His publishing company, DWB, is known for selling millions of songs and records all over the world and pioneering some of the early breakthroughs in markets like Japan and South Korea, long before some of this global rise of J-pop and K-pop that we know now. He's overseen Eurovision entries over 10 years, traveled for industry conferences from Moscow to Taiwan to Amsterdam, and he served as a BBC music consultant. Greig, you've got a lot of perspective and experience that you brought to your work, but also I love this title of the book, Keeping the Dream Alive. I assume it's also part memoir, not only an advice book.
Yeah, no, it tells the story, my early endeavors into why I became a songwriter. It talks about the dream I had from the beginning, and it definitely was a dream. I think I, like everyone else, you lose the dream along the way, and I then rediscovered it and really wanted to share that with. I turned 50 this year and wanted to share with people that dreams do come true, actually, particularly when you share them with other people. A long journey, lots of different stories to tell and things, rejections we overcame, but it's in the and talk about it.
Yes. As many people often do, you reach a point where you say, I think I'll just quit. Your book opens with this very vulnerable story that in 2003, you almost walked away from music entirely. What helped you turn this rejection into fuel, I'd say, instead of failure?
I think I just always had something in me which had this belief that I supposed to be writing songs and creating. And I was working in the bank for many years, and it was almost like I was doing that as a job, but I was trying to do the songwriting. And so it got to that point where it was so little songwriting. I nearly walked away and I nearly gave up. But I think just having enough people around me who believed in me was a real important. It just my mum and people like really said, no, I believe in your dream. And actually my grandfather, I've talked about in the book, he told me to reach for the moon and I may catch a star on the way down. I really cling to that in the darkest moments of I'm supposed to do it. And actually, I always had one hope. It was always like there was something happening with one song, and it would almost, something new would happen with another song, and then that one would disappear. I actually would look back and read the book now and think, how on earth did I? But I think it's just this inner belief that I was supposed to be doing this. And I think as creatives, again, now I look back and think, if you do believe you're supposed to be creative, I get loads of people come to me and say, might be doing a job, but songwriting never left me. It was always, I think if it's there, it will never leave you. In a sense, there's something that you have to hold on to. And even if it's the smallest speck, you have to hold on to that smallest speck until it builds into something else.
Yes. And you espouse this mindset of persistence. You say showing up matters sometimes even more than talent, which all of us creatives get this advice from people. Yeah. Just keep going. You can do it. Don't let that self-doubt creep in. But practically, how does the showing up, in your experience, work for songwriters especially?
I think songwriting is creative. So there's an element of, it could be that we could do it at any point during the day. But I very early on, when I left the bank, I had 1 year and I gave myself a year. If I didn't succeed, I had to go back to the bank. So I worked at this as a job. I was at the studio at 9 a.m. Yes, 9 till 6. I made it a job. I turned up every day. Even though one day I wasn't feeling creative, I turned up. And actually what I learned to do is find other people who were also creative And when I turned up and felt not creative, if I wrote a song with my partner Pete and he was creative, we sparked and suddenly I was creative. Turning up, putting the right people around you, the other creatives, trying to enjoy it at the same time. Don't lose hope or shape of what you're supposed to be doing. Believing in what you do. There isn't, as you say, lots of people just say, just keep going, just keep going. But the truth is, if you put the right people around, it helps you to keep going. So I'm very much a believer in team is a big thing. It's not me alone. I certainly haven't done this alone. I'm certainly not the best songwriter that I've come across. I've come across hundreds and hundreds of songwriters. I'd say I'm way down the list. But the truth is, I had the persistence and I had the knowledge to find the right people to keep me going.
And I just hear that from so many creatives, the collaboration. It's not just teaming up, but it's working off of each other sometimes.
Sparking. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
So co-writing is hard. It's hard to let go of, you've done this thing and then do you want to let go? But actually, once you've learned, when you let go of what you do and there's two other people in the room, if you go in giving and those two come in giving, actually the numbers means I go out with more than I came in with because there's two and one in that sense. So for me, once you've gone into that mindset, I'm going to give, but usually I get back more. I think actually you realize letting go actually allows the creation to breathe.
So interesting. And you've been very honest that sometimes just loving the music isn't enough. You've got to treat it like a business. You've got to protect that creativity, even in this competitive environment. What, from your experience again, you've got to monetize it for sure. We have to make a living, but you want to protect that creativity from burnout. How have you kept this viable career mindset and still protect the creativity?
Yeah, there's a difficult line where it's like you're seeking success so much that you lose the passion that you had when you first started. So I keep in touch with that 14-year-old me in a lot of it, where it's like I go back and listen to the songs that first inspired me. So I'm an 80s boy, Depeche Mode, Tears for Fears, Wham, all these little great acts that inspired me in the first place. If I'm actually losing touch with it and starting to just chase the success, I go back and listen to them and I get re-inspired creatively. That's not saying I don't try and monetize it, because actually you do need to try and monetize it, because actually to keep going. How do I keep going if I don't monetize it? But you have to get this balance between chasing. So I would say I'm chasing a dream. I'm not chasing success at the expense of everything else. I'm chasing the dream, and the dream is not necessarily the success. I've learned the dream is enjoying the journey. I'm getting income, but actually the journey as I go is probably more important now than the big success that's going to change my financial world. I think you learn maybe in your late 30s, 40s, sometimes there's a change, there's a shift, you have kids, and there's anything. The journey is more important than the end of the line, in a sense, because otherwise you suddenly get everything, I'll be successful, but I haven't had anyone with me. I've not shared this with anyone. And I think that we're supposed to share the journey along with people, and enjoy. Whether that's losing and being in a team or winning and being in a team. Actually, I prefer to lose in a team than win on my own, in a sense.
So interesting.
Shared that part of it, and you learn a lot from losing. And yes. I've lost.
Yeah, and you're right. There is a difference between chasing the money and chasing the dream, for sure. Yeah. And you found success in some unexpected places. I was reading that DWB broke into Japan and Korea long before a lot of other UK and US writers knew those markets were existing and available. You also made a lot of songwriting camps, what they are today, through Eurovision. What is about seeking these niches, and how has that shaped your creative and business?
Yeah, I have to say, first of all, it was a happy accident in the sense we were lucky. We fell upon Japan by having a boy group from Ireland who suddenly were successful in Japan, and Japanese publisher said, "Have you got any boy bands?" And we were like aiming for the Backstreet Boys. And suddenly we found this market which was like, wow, it's bigger than the UK market. So we were lucky with Japan. But then we used the formula. We went, where else in the world isn't anyone interested? That makes sense. And we saw in the UK, Eurovision was cheesy. It was this big big TV show, and it still is a big TV show, but there was something cheesy about it that the UK didn't like. So we thought if we go as UK writers, and every time I went to a Eurovision competition, I was like, this is amazing. Why do we think it's cheesy? You have your songs in front of 250 million people. Justin Timberlake performs in the interval act. Madonna does, because they know they're in front of millions and millions of people.
Right.
Let's go there and aim at a market that no one else cares about in the UK. And actually that allowed us to be very successful there. And I think it's a formula we thought, this works if you go there before somewhere else. And everyone else is, in a way, everyone now is aiming at the K-pop market. And a lot of the UK people do aim at Eurovision because they suddenly see that it's a place that you can place songs. But it's taken them a while to get there. And if you're there first, you're there and you've got the contacts and relationships. And so it does work in business. Go somewhere where someone else is.
Yes, yes. Not only for your own music and the company's music, but also the mentorship of others, including I was interested to read about your mentorship of neurodiverse creatives and writers, really speaking up for the underdogs in all aspects of this industry. How do you help writers identify their own strengths, build that supportive team, that collaboration that we just talked about?
Yeah, I would say that feels to me like my biggest gifting and where I've found myself now is, and I think it comes from a long history of my having family of autism. Actually, it's all in my family. I may even be on the spectrum somewhere myself. I have a daughter who is, my brother is, my dad definitely is. And the more I see songwriters, I'm like, I talk to people, and actually I don't see it as a difference or a problem. I see it as let's find the superpower, because there's definitely one in there. And that tends to be something creative. How did I find it? I think I did. I read a book called Strengths Finder 12 years ago. I did the test, and I was expecting to be like a communicator, connector, all these sorts of. And actually, the thing that came up, it was like 75% was developer. And I suddenly realized, as a publisher, even in the songwriting, and even when I was songwriting, I was going into the room and I was working with people and I was developing their ideas and then in the room. So I was more of a listener and a coach. And by being told you're a developer, it made me realize that's what I'm good at. Of course, because of family with autism, I've researched it. I've done some courses myself, and then I spot it. And now 50% of writers and creative people are somewhere on the spectrum. ADHD, autism, anxieties and things. And actually, for me, even the biggest artists, they're writing from the heart and they're going through big problems. But that somehow is how they then share their art as well and why it touches us. So I think sometimes we have to go through these things, whether we're on the spectrum or not, or whether it's just that's things we go through love, to be able to relate to the public we're singing to or creating for.
Yeah, so good.
In a way, I love that underdog thing where if I can make someone successful who has got less chance, that really does it for me, because it's almost like there's lots of people in the UK industry, again, and I'd say I'm not cool. I know in the UK industry, I tried, and actually, I like the fact that we went to these other places and we found places that you could still be successful, and I've helped people be successful who wouldn't necessarily be successful in the UK industry.
Yes. And a lot of writers, what could I say? They're constantly polishing the song. They're constantly writing the song. But sooner or later, you have to say, this song is done or it's finished. Hit the send button. Let's record it or let's release it. Where do you help mentor folks to say, this song is finished?
It's very, again, a fine line. There's an element of it does need to be really good, but actually, so for an example, on a songwriting camp, we actually write a song in a day. And one of the biggest things I tell people is write the song and record the vocal. Because if you don't record the vocal, everyone leaves and they're doing something else and it never gets done. You go back to a different country, and therefore you're not in the same room. But if you record the vocal, you've got something to work on. So there's a discipline, and then you move on to the next song the next day. But of course, you come home and work on him, or you can do the production. I think I've never had anyone say to me, I love your song, but I'm not going to record it because it's got this one line in I don't like. They'll actually say, I love this song. Can we change that one line? If they like the song enough, in a sense. So actually, perfection. We don't need perfection in the writing process. We need finishing. We need to get it to a point where I can pitch it. I can't pitch your song if it's still being developed. So there is that line where let's develop it, let's get it finished, let me pitch it. Of course, we're going to tell you whether it needs to be this or that done, but there's a certain level where a lyrical line or maybe one chord might not change the actual reason we're going to actually sell the song, but actually having it stuck on your hard drive not finished will.
So true. Yes. And I guess sometimes we get enamored with these stories of the big hits, and the songwriter says, it practically wrote itself. I wrote it in 10 minutes. I went into the studio and it just came out of me. But that's few and far between, I assume.
I really do recognize it. We, again, as I said, try and write like a job, and we can sit and write all day and we'll finish a song. But often, you got this guy here, Pete, my partner, at the end of the day, he'll start tinkling around on the piano and you'll just do a little sketch of an idea. And somehow that's the one that becomes the hit. He's often walking away, being in a different space, but actually without the discipline, I very much believe, without writing one song that day, the second creative idea wouldn't have come. I think it's like a memory. There's a part of your memory, and this was what happened when I wrote the book. I was dumping information from my memory, and actually by dumping those memories that were there, suddenly I unlocked a memory which I had forgotten. And I think without the dumping, without the getting out of sometimes just a good song, the special ones haven't got a way out.
Good. My guest is Greig Watts. Greig, before we get too far, I want to make sure listeners know how to connect with you, find you online, your website, your courses, etc., where to find the book.
Yeah, contact me by email. The book's on Amazon, basically, Keeping the Dream Alive, Greig Watts, and Greig with an I in it. It's very easy to find. I think the audio book's just gone up as well now, AI audio book, which was fun trying to make because some of the words are pronounced not quite right.
Yeah.
My website is dwbmusicgroup.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram as Greig Watts. It's very simple to find, or my company, DWB Music Limited. But yeah, get in contact via those or via my email. I'm open to hearing from anyone and discussing journeys.
I know people are going to want to connect with you. Greig, for songwriters and really any creative that might be listening that feels like their dream might be slipping away, that they've hit a wall, what's the one thing you feel like they need to hear today?
Don't give up. My grandmother used to say, and this was, I would go in the car with them as a young boy, and I'd often feel sick. And I now know it's because they were driving down the wiggly roads of Cornwall. Wales. And she would say to me, don't worry, Greig, it's just round the corner. And I truly believed it was just around the corner, and she was a good Christian woman. She wasn't a liar, but she was giving me hope. She was saying, it's just around the next one. And eventually we got there, and I wasn't sick. So I think you have to think, I often think many times, again, if you read the book, there's so many stories about when I was nearly there and my colleague gave up because we just about failed. But I got up again. I think you might be just about to be going over that hill, just about to be going around that corner where you walk into the person that helps open your dream, the situation that helps open your dream. Sometimes it literally, there's a Eurovision story. I was working on Eurovision for years. The BBC kept saying, just ignoring me. And then eventually, 10 years of persistence of please just send in an email. Eventually some guy replied and said, and I saw at the bottom of the email, can you be bothered with this? He was CC'd in, but the guy emailed back and said, Greig, can I get hold of you? And we had a call, and he lived 12 minutes away from me.
Amazing.
We're in the room, and then we were able to share Eurovision dreams. It was like talking to my brother. 3 years later, I had the Eurovision BBC job. From zero to one person change the whole situation. So it just might be he's just around the corner. Your
Yes.
connection is just around the corner. So keep going.
So good. So valuable. Good advice. Greg, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. I've really enjoyed our conversation and some of the stories. I love these kind of behind the scenes music stories, but also the encouragement that you're giving us as writers, like I said, of songs or books or stories of any kind. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been really great being here. Thanks for asking.
And then thanks to our sponsor, White Cloud Coffee. They're fueling creative conversations with coffee and caffeine. Sometimes that's what we need to push through. But
Quick help always helps.
listeners, you can enjoy 10% off your first order at whitecloudcoffee.com. And of course, if you look for more encouragement, I'd love for you to grab my free ebook, A World of Creativity, with a lot of highlights from interviews from our first season of the podcast. Just visit mark-stinson.com. And of course, join us again next time for these around the world journeys. Just in the last few episodes, we've been to New York and San Francisco, but also Stockholm and Sydney and Taipei, and of course, stamping our creative passport in the UK today. We love to talk to creatives of all kinds everywhere about how to get inspired, how to organize ideas, how to get the confidence and connections to launch our work out into the world. And that's what it's all about. Get the work launched into the world. So come back again next time. And until then, I'm Mark Stinson, and we'll keep unlocking your world of creativity.